Welcome everybody to today's office hours. Actually, it's a office hours topic of office hours. I know that sounds crazy, but last week we were talking about systems of systems and how to use ChatGPT to do different types of things. And I wanted to make sure that for the starting of the new year, that you guys had the tools and the resources that you need to make 2024 the best. And in doing that, I was thinking, well, what topics have we not covered or not covered well? What are the things that you as Realvolve users, as competent real estate agents, busy real estate agents, what are the things that would be most beneficial to you for the beginning of the year? And, everybody's at a different level. Everybody's at a different starting point. Some agents start at zero. They come into Realvolve. They know nothing about Realvolve. They know nothing about real estate. And they're brand new to the business, and there's so much that you've got to learn. There's so many things that to get you to that first lead, to get you to that first processing of the listing or the transaction, and getting you to that point where you're actually doing some retention or working your past customers. And just thinking, I was like, man, we've covered so many different things. Maybe a topic on the topics that we've got, which allows you to understand, how it's kind of outlined, the different things that we have in our office hours. And you can then pick and choose the ones that work best for you. So that's what I want to do today. Just kind of go through that and help you guys kind of understand my mindset whenever I'm doing office hours, and whenever we designed Realvolve to kind of help you through some stuff. So one of the things, well, let me go ahead and do for those that don't know me, my name is Mark Stepp. I am the Chief Innovation Officer here at Realvolve, just helping you guys understand automation and the why. I've been doing this I really need to change that slide now. It has been 33 years and counting. So make sure that you guys understand, hey, I've been in this business for a while of just helping you guys learn real estate technology. For today's, we're going to talk about the office hours, and it's kind of what I was doing as far as kind of giving you an introduction to this. We'll be talking about office hours topics and summaries, some frameworks and automations that kind of go along with that, and the help and support, some premium services we have available. The thing that I want you guys to understand is this Realvolve office hours. So we've got lots and lots of training for you guys for different topics. And like I said, everybody starts at a different level. And so for me to come in and say, well, you need this or you need that is pretty presumptuous of me, because some people may already know that or have that. So what I want to do is kind of go through the process of identifying those things that are important in a framework that I taught last time, which in our December 20th and the 27th, I believe it was, we talked about conversions, operations, retention, and experiences. And that's, there's 4 core strategies for you doing your business. And I don't want to cover it too much, but I want to make sure you guys understand this is, the core part of this is conversions, is talking about getting those leads, converting those leads. What are the things that you do to convert those leads? The operations is everything that you do in making money. The retention is everything that you do to get return clients or referral clients from those past clients. And I kind of lump those into there together. And then the experiences is making sure that your clients get memory making processes done. So they remember what happened. They remember and they enjoy the experience. So that's kind of what we're going to be going over. So if we break these down and start looking back, and I'm going to go to the office hours site. If you go to www.realvolve.com/office hours, this shows you the most recent one that we did in the playlist. In the playlist, it'll have the date and time piece and the overall topic and stuff. But if you look here, there's a little hamburger. People call them different things. A playlist is what it actually is. It's 3 lines in a play arrow. You click on this, and it shows you all the different office hours and trainings that we've had. So majority of these are ones that I've done. Early on, we had some that Michael Shawley had done and put together, and some really good training and stuff. But if you go through and just look through this list, it's going to give you a lot of stuff. But what I wanted to do is kind of break these down and let you understand how they fit into the core strategies and why they might be important to you based off of where you are at today. You know, getting ready for 2024, there's things that you learned from 2023, hopefully, and in previous years, and knowing what you did right, what you did wrong, what are those things that could best benefit you in your business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here to this piece and just kind of talk about each one of these in their associated areas, based off of the conversions, the operations, the retention, and the experiences. So I'm going to go ahead and go full slide on this just so that it's easier. If we go through conversions and we think about, okay, if you're at this point in your business where you're needing to bring in more leads, and, you know, we always need to bring in more leads, but some agents are more referral based, where, 80-90% of their business comes from past referral of past clients and or referrals from past clients, and those are important. If you don't have that business, if you don't have that yet, you know, the goal is to get there so that you have a constant running machine that is based off of past clients and referrals of past clients. But if you're not there yet, what are the things that you can do to convert new leads? Where do you get those? Now, you know, a lot of agents will rely on websites like Zillow and their website, realtor.com, to bring in leads. Within our FirePoint product, we have the ability to have you create websites with the data that comes from MLS, being able to capture those leads, nurture those leads, and then do things with it. So there's lots of lead websites out there to bring in leads. Some of the things that we've got out there in our playlist is the templates, emails, and better contact lists. This is, we went through how do you communicate with your leads, and what are the things that you need in order to balance out the process of dealing with that and nurturing those leads. So that's an important one. Zapier and bringing in leads. Now, if you've got websites from Zillow, from Realtor.com, from your own website, you need to be able to bring those leads into Realvolve. Okay, now if you've got FirePoint, we've got a way to transfer them from FirePoint into Realvolve kind of automatically. The lead part of, and the reason why we've got two different products, the FirePoint product is really that lead generation product, where Realvolve is more of the customer relationship, the task management, process management, listing and transaction management, and then the retention part. But you can bring leads over from if you have FirePoint. But if you don't have FirePoint, you need to get them in there somehow. And the Zapier option is really the best way. There's lots of ways to bring in leads from, say, Google Spreadsheets. If you have something that collects like a form, some kind of lead generation form that saves it to a Google Sheet, you can bring those leads in. If you've got emails coming in and need to parse out the data from those emails, getting those in. Lots of other sources, CSV files, stuff like that, that can be retrieved, can be set up in Zapier. And it's just an automation process that gets those leads in. And that's an important one, because once you get them in from Zapier, it can automatically import the contact. It can start the workflow, the workflow process, so that anything that from that point forward is handled within Realvolve. And that really is the beginning of all that nurturing and stuff. The lead generation follow-up one-pager, there was a training I did where I did and actually, let me just go ahead and go to that, because that's kind of an important one. Up, escape out, and one-pager. One thing I do wish they had on here, and I don't know if they do, one pager. There we are. So you can kind of do a Control F there and find it. On this one, so for those that don't know me, you can go to this, and this is worth knowing too. Whenever you're in the playlist, you can actually watch it right here. You can expand on it, whatever. But you can also go into the YouTube version of this, click on that, and it opens up the full. My name is Mark Stepp. I'm the full YouTube version of this. And one of the advantages of that is the fact that you can get to the description pieces here. And there is a link here to one of the one-pager resources that we've got that allows you to see what are the things that you can do within workflows. And this is a great resource. It's got some video stuff that goes along with it. This is a tool that you can use to help identify where you need to build things. You can, day one, day two, what are the things that I want to do? So this is just a resource tool that you can use. It's actually really good. But that one-pager, follow-up one-pager, is a great resource just for being able to build and think through your workflow process, how you build that lead generation workflow process, and what are the elements in there. And a great resource for doing that. That video actually goes through the entire process. So all of these are typically 45-minute trainings that you can do. And that's what I was saying. You get to a point where, like right now, we've got so many different videos. A lot of people don't even know that we've got all these videos and what they can do for you. And, while we're here every week, for you to be able to learn the different things, there's lots of things that you can learn outside of the office hours, watching the office hours replays. We have one just on working leads, and it takes you through the entire gamut of of what to do with working leads. Michael did a great job on that one. Worth watching. Lead generation, automation, follow-up. Once those leads come in, what kind of follow-up do you want to do? It's very similar to the lead generation piece. I guess the difference being is if you don't have a good process, this one would be a good one to watch, where if you have an existing process, you just want to enhance it, this is something to maybe take a look at. And then a lead generation strategy piece. So all of these really kind of cover that conversion process and making sure that you've got that. Any questions on that or anything that? No? All right. So let me go ahead. I'll go and go back to the slideshow piece so you can see it a little bit better. So that's conversions. Operations. Operations. It would be nice if I'd spell that right. Operations. I'll fix that. So in the operations side, and this is your daily money-making processes. This is your listing all the way to closing day processes. What are those things that you do? Well, open house workflows. Now, you may or may not be doing them yourself. I know with COVID time, there was some challenges where no one could do open houses, and that kind of put a damper in some of that. But now that they're back and being able to do that, some of the things that you want to accomplish in that open house, how you organize that open house, what are the different steps you do before, during, and after are in that workflow process. We talk about that and all the different things that go along with it. So that's an important one that if you're doing open houses, definitely take a look at that. The new agent onboarding. If you have a team, if you're a team leader and you're bringing agents on, what are all the different things? And we've actually done this one a couple different times, the earliest one going back to but it is some great, and we've got an entire workflow from our Navigator suite that kind of takes you through that onboarding process. What are all the things that you do to help onboard new agents in your team? The Essential Suite workflow. This actually has elements of your conversion, your operations, and your retention in it, but there's two different elements that really put it more into the operations piece, and that is your listing to sign contract, and then contract to close. So some essential pieces that are really good for you to be able to set up the workflow, be able to take that workflow and guide you through that entire process from time you sign the listing agreement all the way to closing day. There's a couple different versions of that. And everybody does that differently. That's one of the things that why Realvolve is so powerful, is that it's able to be customized to the way you do business. If there's something that you want to be able to do, stick it in the workflow and take you through it. But that's a good one to look at. Filters and tags. I mean, anytime that you're in your main day, there's times when you're wanting to search for certain things, and there was a whole training just on filters and tags. How do you find records? How do you sort through them? How do you use the tags to properly group contacts and information together so that you can do processes of things, mail outs and newsletters and things like that. So that's an important one to watch and listen to. The leveling up, this is kind of what I was talking about for the Essential Suite, leveling up your transaction to close process, really refining it. How do you get from point A to point B and closing those transactions? That's a good one. The seller reports, there's one just on seller reports that if you are a listing agent and you want to keep your sellers in the know of all the things that you're doing for them, the seller report is the best way of doing it. Every day you can be reminded of things that you need to do for your different sellers. What are the things that you've done for them? And it logs them, and then it reports back to that seller the things that you've done, you've accomplished, maybe things that you have yet to do. And especially whenever if you're in a tougher market where you've got more inventory and things are selling slower, this is good just in case of expirations and things that happen. You know, a lot of times the seller will say, what did you really do for me? And this kind of prevents that from happening. You do also have a similar thing for buyer reports. You can take what you learn here and put it into the buyer report side to go through the transaction process and do the same thing. But this is really geared towards the selling agent or the listing agent, so that you can sell that property and all the different things that you've done for them up to that point where you've got the signed contract. Another contract to close. We've covered contract to close so many different ways and times. It's worth taking a look at, one or two of these, figuring out what it is that other agents do. And if you're not doing a certain step, add it to your workflow process, making sure that you are giving them that world-class experience. I thought I had two. Here's the. Actually had two different operations. We did a lot of stuff within operations. The planning, the workflows, getting set up in your Realvolve account. There's an entire process. If you're at that zero level, you're brand new agent, brand new to Realvolve, this is a great one. Just getting set up in your account. What are all the different things? The 8 building blocks to make up any workflow. This is one that I did. We did an entire week in training, a 2-day training on building blocks. And this is kind of what makes up any workflow. How do you think about a workflow? What are the elements that you do to build that workflow and the process to build that? And if you are brand new to Realvolve, this one is a really good one, just so that you know what you don't know. How can I build my workflows more efficiently? And for those that do have workflows already building, and this is something to review and say, well, how can I make my workflows better? We did several workflows on webhooks. And you might say, what is the webhook? That sounds technical. Well, it is kind of technical in the aspect of you're using technology to run other technology. And what that means is from within Realvolve, within a workflow activity, you can have actions. Actions are things that are done for you automatically. Now, if you have things that you need to accomplish that Realvolve doesn't do, I mean, we're not designed to do certain things. There are software pieces out there that typically do have that feature or functionality, and you can use a workflow webhook, an action within a workflow activity, to execute or to run some other activity in some other software. And it's called a webhook. And what that does, man, my mouse is so touchy. That webhook just says, okay, today I need to do X, whatever that is, and it's something that Realvolve doesn't do. Let's run this action. This action says, okay, we need to send information to our pipeline status board, which is one of these other ones here. Update your pipeline status board using a webhook action. This particular one, which uses webhooks, it takes the idea of, if I get a new listing, maybe I want to put it on my office board. And how can I put this office board up on a TV screen and just have it constantly updated? If you're carrying multiple listings and you need to know the status of where everything is at just a glance, having a visual board on your wall is one way of doing it, with a marker board or whatever. But if you can automate that and put up a monitor and then send that information over to a spreadsheet or whatever that updates automatically every time you get a new listing, if dates change or whatever, it can send that information as a webhook to your pipeline status board. Great way of doing it. So these are just a multitude of ways that you can do things, and we'll see webhooks in some of the retention pieces as well. I'll go over one more piece there. 4 important workflows for listing to close, and that's kind of the essentials piece as well. Some of the things that you go there, and we have done several different merge field trainings. If you don't understand merge fields, I think there's no fewer than 3. There could be 4 or 5 different ones where we talked about how to utilize merge fields in your system. And a merge field can be used, typically it's used within the template itself, for either an email, for an SMS, for sending information to Facebook, Twitter, stuff like that. There's some ways you can use merge fields for that. But you can also set up merge fields in checklists. You can set up merge fields for different activities that you do in different ways, and lots of stuff that's covered there. So definitely, if you haven't learned about merge fields, go through some of those, because they are extremely powerful, extremely important. How are we doing on time? Okay, good time. Retention. Now, the R in core is retention. Again, it talks about returning and referral processes. What are all those different things that you do currently to help bring back customers? We know that based off of NAR's statistics that they've put out many years, many times, and it just doesn't seem to change much. It does fluctuate a little bit, but it's like, last time I looked, it's like 86% of the past buyers and sellers said they would do repeat business with their agent, but only 13% actually do. Why is that? And typically it's because agents get forgotten. And it's because of the lack of follow-up after the close, or follow through, I should say, that nurturing and retention process that helps them remember you. So there are things that you can do for celebrating holidays. We've got a bunch of different things on, how do you deal with all the events that you do throughout the year for your past clients. What are those things, and how can you automate those with workflows? We've got an entire training on that. Telling the story from lead to past client. This is kind of an overall scoping. It takes you all the way, it takes you through the entire process, which might actually be a better one for at the very beginning of your conversions side, but it also carries into your past clients. What are those things that you do to help retain those clients afterwards? Annual reviews. Are you reaching back out to those past buyers and saying, hey, based off of today's economic situations, this is what your house is worth. Is now a good time for us to look at maybe alternatives to using the value, the equity that you've built up to either move up or use it for doing things that you might want to do differently, and just going through a review. That's where you kick in and you be the expert in real estate, and do your job. That's not technical in as far as software goes. There are a lot of softwares to help with reviews, but those things that you do to actually help them. We do talk about relationship scores and what are the things that that happen every day with customers, and how are you communicating, where the score within Realvolve, if you go into Realvolve and you look at any individual score of a contact, there are ups and downs. They're constantly flowing. The score goes up. That means you're doing a lot with them. Their score goes down, meaning they may be in this returning and referral process more. But knowing those relationship scores and how they constantly are changing can help you know, when should I touch base with these people, and am I touching base with them in an appropriate way? One thing that I don't have on hand that I really need to put on here that we just recently did was the contact cross section, and how it can be used within the retention side. It may be in the experience side. I forget if I moved it in there or not. But all of these are good trainings that we've done that's in the office hours area that can take you through and give you all the knowledge you need for those pieces. And then the last one, and which is in here, is the experiences, making memories. The contact cross section is one that, again, it probably could go into either one of these, either the experience or the retention side, because of it's the way it does things. But making sure that people have an experience. What are those things that you're doing to help make memories and help them remember you all the way through the process? That's the one thing about experiences is, with conversions, operations, and retention, the CO and R, those are defined timelines of things that you do in your business. The experience part of this is encompassing all three of them. You want to give them an experience that they remember as you go through the lead conversion. Those things that you do during the process of making money, and then even at the end. So experiences is kind of a weird one where it actually brings them all together and say, hey, how are we going to make them remember us? And that's where, like, building and maintaining a strong network, you can build in things that you can do after the fact. Maybe after they close, who are those people that you have in your referral network that you can have help your maintenance people, things like that you can help your past customers, and knowing what they do. The send delighted surveys using webhooks. We talked about webhooks earlier. How can I utilize software? Mute Kim. Sorry, Kim, if you have anything, I'm just going to mute you for a second. I was hearing some background noise, but definitely if you have a question, bring it right back up here. If you go through a process, so let's say we're going through the entire listing to close process, how do you gauge how you did in that process? What are the things that you recognize? Well, you can get a lot of attaboys and things like that as far as pat on the backs or shaking hands, thank you, stuff like that. But once that's done, you don't have any proof of it necessarily. There's one training that we do that uses webhooks, and we talk about sending delighted surveys. Delighted is a service that is out there that allows you to gauge how well you did things. You can set up surveys for different things, and those surveys then come back to you and give you a score of what kind of service did you give them. You can then use those delighted surveys on your website, in books that maybe you have in your office for people to look through and gauge how good a service is this agent giving other buyers and sellers. And that's a great way of doing it. You can use webhooks to send out the delighted surveys, get the information, bring in that information, and do things with it. So that's an important piece. Creating, and this is another one that you can kind of use in multiple different places, but using workflow webhooks to create Facebook page posts. The process of sending, like whenever you get a brand new listing, again, this could be in your operations side, but getting that new listing, how do you getting that information to your Facebook page right now, if you are at all? If you're not, shame on you. There's still people that look at those things, and getting out there, you can take the time to do it manually, or you can use it within a webhook. The other part of this is once you close on a property, sending out Facebook posts on what you did and stuff. So, giving some memories and tagging those buyers and those sellers to those Facebook posts can help gain back additional revenue down the road through referrals, through repeat customers and stuff. And then we did a training back in September on Pi Day. And this is one, you could replace Pi Day with any event, but this is just showing you the one event called Pi Day that is done at the beginning, September, October, first part of November, where, what are the things that agents are doing to help their current customers, their past customers, do stuff with the Thanksgiving holiday. And Pi Day is one of them. And how do you organize that event? What are the things that you do to notify people? What do you do to get the orders, pick up the orders, or if you're delivering them, deliver those orders? What's the process, and how do you set up a workflow for that? And again, you could replace Pi Day with whatever event day that you want to have, and maybe it's coming up with Valentine's Day. Are you doing anything for your couples? That is an event that you can set up, and what are the things that you do? I know for Easter, one of the agents was doing some Easter egg hunt days, which is a workflow that was set up to help past buyers and sellers that had younger kids, and you actually be the Easter bunny, or hire somebody to be the Easter bunny. But what the important part of this is, as you're sending out information to those people to say, hey, register for this, we've got limited spots. If you know anybody that might want to take advantage of this, please send this information to them. This is a way to get new leads of buyers and sellers that have young kids that in turn will probably be moving up in other homes. So it was a brilliant way of getting new leads, and I just very memorable for the Easter one. Pi Day is similar in a way, but all of these different event days can be organized and can be set up so that you know when you need to start it based off of when your event is. You can do so many days prior where you need to do some organization, some planning, some notifications, and then the event day happens, and then maybe you have some follow-up activities afterwards. But the entire training on that goes back and goes through those. So I think that's oh no, we do have celebrating holidays. We did one in August, just talking about celebrating holidays itself. Telling the story, that was kind of the same one, a similar type of one, lead to past client. Annual reviews, actually we talked about all these. So these are the same ones, kind of looped back. That's it. So the real key to this, guys, is, even though we have these meetings on Wednesdays every week, you have such a knowledge base of things. There's 74 different videos in this playlist that's out on Office Hours. This is a treasure trove of knowledge, of information, of things that other agents have done and used, and it's just a matter of looking through them, deciding how in your business you would be most benefited from the things that's in here. Grab one of them, make that your topic of the week, and then learn it, build the workflow. Some of these have workflows already built for them, and all you have to do is download them. Others, it's planning on how do I make my workflow? How do I do the data entry of that workflow? What are the different elements of it, and how to best organize each individual activity? And it can just be a really powerful learning moment. But the most important of all of that is once you've learned it, once you've implemented it in a workflow, it's there for you to repeat and use over and over again. You've done the hard work one time, and now you don't have to remember it. You don't have to go back in the next time you do that event the following year. You don't have to go back and remember everything. You just start the workflow on it, and it remembers it for you. Each time you get a new listing, this is how I process my listings. You're giving them a world-class experience every time the same way, so that they repeat and give back referrals. As new leads come in, you're doing the things to nurture that lead that is a good way of nurturing to get to that signed agreement. These are all different systems that through the workflow process can guide you through each and every element of your business. Just like, and I say this, I've said this multiple times, it's just like McDonald's. You come into McDonald's, not necessarily, and I guess it depends on the experience you're looking for. If you're wanting something consistent, you know how it's set up, you know how you want it, you can go through McDonald's, and they do the same thing, the same processes at every McDonald's, and it's because they've got a system. Now, do you want that McDonald's experience? Do you want a Ruth's Chris experience where it's much more? And I did a video just on Ruth's Chris one time, where I got just an amazing experience at Ruth's Chris, and the food was amazing, and because of that experience, it reminds I remember it all the time. Those are the things that you want to build into your business, so that at every point in your business, at every point, there's something that wows your customer, something that gives them that experience. And these different elements that we've been building over the past couple of years that's in office hours will help you do that. And Realvolve gives you that ability. So we have like 10 minutes before the end of the hour. Any questions? I know I talked like crazy and didn't stop a whole lot there, but anything that stands
Mark,
out?
I think I've had some challenges with some of the workflows. I did purchase it off of someone who has quite a bit of business established, as well as quite a bit going on with Realvolve in terms of what she does for it. But is there a particular off our playlist that you can recall that helps you learn a little bit more about how to set up those workflows? Because perhaps there aren't any that I'm seeing that are really fitting my needs, or I need to adjust a workflow and perhaps add something.
Absolutely. So, and I think you may have
did,
come
because
in late.
I'm like, the time difference, I have it right, and it said the meeting wasn't going on, and then it said the meeting was in an hour, and I was like, it's not. I have the right time. So something got
no.
there.
One of the things, I'll post this coming up here as soon as it downloads. I'll repost it. One of the things that we talked about was this one pager. There's a one pager piece that kind of takes you through the planning of a workflow. What are the things that you do? And this one is just for the lead generation follow-up. But any of our workflows are really geared the same way. I mean, as far as the overall design of them depends on what your outcome needs to be. In this case, the outcome needs to be, following up with lead generation. And these are the different things that it takes to build that. If you're needing something for your lead processing, there's really not lead, your listing to contract process, or your contract to close process, those different things. We've got some out there that take you step by step on how to add activities to the workflow. There's videos on each one of those. And let me just see real quick here.
So I've created a workflow for, or I've used someone else's and edited it to fit me for a listing for once I get the listing,
Okay. Once you get those things, so the listing, the contract process
and how to prepare the house. Here are some tips, some Zillow information. And then it was odd because on my reminders, I got reminders that I didn't think were timely. Like we didn't have the photographer date yet, but I'm getting a reminder to enter the photographer date. So I must have not done something correctly, and I, for the life of me, could not figure it out. So I don't like to have things in my to-do list that I absolutely cannot do yet. And that was what was happening.
Absolutely. And I think it could be the differences in how people do their business. It is possible that for that particular workflow, whoever you got that from, maybe they have an in-house photographer versus you not, or whatever. And maybe within their process, that's where it goes. But in your process, the way you do it, It needs to be changed. It needs to go somewhere different. And that particular process can be edited. Anytime you go into a particular, actually, let me just go in into mine real quick here. Let me bring it over here. So Whenever you go, and this is not a good one, I should have gone into a different screen of mine, but listing, let me just do a listing link. Got lots of sample ones in here. Listing service in MLS. Now you might have a pre-listing side, so some of the things that you do to get ready before the listing, and those are just a matter of coming through here, looking at your process, and quite possibly they had created a checklist of important dates. So the thing, and this is not a good one to use, the thing that you can do is set up a checklist. Let me go ahead and just create
a checklist within.
Put listing.
I remember seeing that in another one.
Yeah. So let me just create a new one here. I want to take you through this because this is an important one that you really need to think about. And let me just do test for now. Let's do property and click on add. So the question becomes not how it's set up right now for the one that you installed, but how do you really want it to be set up? And if you've got some activity like pre-listing checklist, one thing that may have been done because of the way they were set up, they may have put in bracket checklist for photography. Who's going to be my photographer? But more importantly, what is the photography date? And what is the photography time? So what this does is, as an activity, as a pre-checklist, knowing when am I going to do the photography and when is it? Right. You may not know that until after the staging is done. Maybe you don't even care about it until after the staging is done. Some agents may not do staging, depending on the type of clients that they do. Maybe they don't do that, or the whatever. But knowing where this event goes is the important part. So you've got a couple different options. Number one, you can create a checklist at some point and say, okay, by now, whatever time that is, 3 days down, or is it based off of the completion of some event? So maybe I could say, 4 days after the start date of this workflow, I could do that. Or I could say 1 day. I could say 1 day after the completion date, and I don't have another event in there, but maybe the completion of my staging. Okay. I could do it that way. So it really depends on how your system in the way you do business is set up. So before you can do this. So I'm just going to add this for a second here. I'm going to say 1 day. I'm going to create another one here. Say staging completed. And let's just say we always do that 5 days after the list date. I'm just grabbing something out of here just to how you have it set up is. So I'm going to come back over here to my checklist. And at this point now, instead of just doing 1 day after start date, I want to say 1 day after the completion date, after I complete a certain event. That certain event is the staging. Once I complete staging, then this activity is going to come up. And what does this activity do? All it does is say, hey, do you have the date yet? And if you don't have the date yet, maybe one of the actions is send an email to my photographer to request a date. So what you might do is in here is create a send photography request and make this an action for an incomplete checklist. So I've got a checklist. it's not complete because I don't have dates and times yet. I want to make it for an incomplete checklist. And I want to say, okay, once I send this out, I should have an answer within a day. So I'm going to say, bring this back one day after. Okay. So now if the other thing that I want to do on this is maybe I want to make my party member on this a photographer. So that tells me, who am I going to send this email to if my checklist isn't complete? So I'm going to click on update on that. Now, this is super simple type thing. But what it does is it says, okay, based off of me completing my staging, and let me go to a property here. Let's see if I can just run this real quick. Center and start test text. So hit next. When's my list date? My list date I'm going to set to instead of February 1st, I'm going to set it to today, for the lack of better. So my staging is going to be complete by the 8th, or it should be. And maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know my photographer yet. Maybe I do. If I always use the same photographer, then Phil photos wherever he is. Let's grab some. And then I click on done. So now what that does is that takes that activity and puts it in as a workflow. And say January 8th comes in on the 8th. Okay, this pops up on the 8th. Let's say today's the 8th. So this pops up, and this isn't going to work right because technically today's not the 8th. But what this does then is this comes up, says, okay, I'm going to complete that. Whenever I complete that, it takes just a second or two, and then it will recalculate this. Okay, there he goes, to 1 day after completion date. Well, 1 day after completion date is 1 day after the 3rd, which is the 4th. Now I come in and I say, okay, do I have my pre-listing checklist done? I got my photography date, but I don't have the time. So this isn't done yet. Actually, I probably wouldn't have it yet. It just so happens
it's in the listing. It's in the property. It's in the property.
Yeah, it's in the listing, so it filled it in. But for whatever reason, I don't have the time for sure. So I want to make sure. So I go and I run this. If I run this, it's going to postpone this for 1 day and come back. Once I do finally get my date and my time, say 9 a.m., then the activity is complete. So it all comes down to, how do you want your activity?
Yeah, I can see that it's missing one layer. I understand it now. Thank you. I appreciate that for sure.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hey, Mark, I have 2 quick questions. The first question is, you mentioned earlier about the seller reports, and because of everything going on with the lawsuit and what have you, we can do the same thing on the buyer side, correct? Tag the files that we want to be
absolutely
yes to go to a buyer report, correct?
Absolutely, yes. There is a buyer report section, and they're done the exact same way. It's just that it deals with the buyer, and it puts all the stuff in there. So whenever an activity is completed, if you have reports set to yes, it will log it in here. If you put it in as a checklist, it'll, whatever information you put in there, it'll put in here. So it does the exact same thing. The only difference is you're using a different merge field in your template whenever you're sending out the email. Instead of seller report,
okay, so that leads me to the
report.
next question. We're in Texas, so we have intermediary here in Texas. If you have a listing of a property and you end up having a buyer as well within the brokerage, do you start two workflows within the same one, or do you start a new one for the buyer for the same property?
So you can start multiple workflows on any given one. So I would really run a second workflow myself. I would have a workflow for the listing side and then a workflow for my buying side. But if you're doing it within, another agent within your company or your team, it may be handled just a little bit different than what your normal buyer, if you were the buyer's agent. So it really kind of depends on how you, again, kind of the same question as before is, how do you do your processes in that particular situation? Have a separate process depending on
the reason why I asked that is because will it actually create a second tab for a buyer report if you were to combine two workflows in the same, like you have the listing and then another agent within the brokerage brings a buyer. So now if you start two workflows within the same first one that you had, will it create a buyer tab?
So your seller report is in your listing side. Your buyer report is in the transaction side.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So if you're dealing with the listing, your listing, your seller report is always on a listing itself. So it's a separate record, but those two records are tied together. Because you can have, like, for here, one Alfie Lane. And I'm assuming you come over here. I'm not sure if I've got anything on here. Yeah, so this right here is, it says closed, but I'm going to set it to active just for the lack of a good example here. I've got one active listing, and whenever I change that active listing to pending, it will come up and say, hey, would you like to make a transaction for this property? And I can say yes. Whenever I do that, it goes ahead and creates a separate transaction record. Now I'm in the transaction side, and I can do my buyer report for my transactions. So the buyer reports are always going to be in the transactional side. The seller reports are going to be in the listing side, in the property side.
Okay, I see it. So you're saying that you personally, if you had a listing and an agent brought the client, a buyer, you would create a separate workflow and not combine the two?
I personally would have a separate workflow for that situation myself, because dealing with, you could set it up as one if you really wanted to, but then you're having to go in there and say, well, whenever I start this workflow, I've got to go through my groups. I got to uncheck certain groups. And there are different situations based off of whether you're handling the buyer versus another agent handling a buyer, and how those notifications are being done. It might be worth a conversation saying, okay, this is how we do it. And, what's the best method of handling it. But in most cases, I would keep it as a separate, same transaction. You could put both of the, all the information in one transaction, but the buyer report, seller report information is going to go from the transaction, where the listing side is going to hold the seller report.
And then you have to set everything up prior to. You can't do anything after the fact, correct? As far as sending the reports over to the buyer report, if it's something you've already done, it has to be done before, when you selected the yes or no on the reports within the template.
Well, if your procedures aren't set up to do it to already have it, you could set up a separate workflow just for that, and then add just that one part of that workflow into it. Again, you can run as many different workflows at the same time as you want in a property transaction contact. You can have multiple workflows running at the same time. So if you just wanted to break out the buyer report workflow, just that part of it, and everything else stay the same, you could do that. and just run the buyer report as a
Okay.
separate
Thank you.
flow.
Oh, any idea why some of our emails would be going to a client's spam and not to their inbox? Is it something on our end or is it on their end? Specifically a Google account.
It could be a combination. Number one, I mean, Google and several of them are really hitting hard on reducing spam. They're trying their best. And depending on one thing, and I've got a train, I'm pretty sure there's a training on this. If there's not, it's in the help. There is a website that you can go to check your emails to see how spammy they are. I don't know. Spammy is my email. Try to see if I can remember. Litmus email review services. There is. I'll have to see if I can find it. There is actually. Let me just go out to help.realvolve.com and do a search for spam. How to prevent emails from going into spam. This is okay. So number one, there is a setting you can get with our support team to check your settings in your, and this is more of a technical side. Your system administrator may need to do this for you, but checking to see how you've got things set up so that because you might be sending, if you're sending it out through Realvolve, it may see Realvolve as not part of you, and therefore anything from us might be being delivered as spam because it doesn't know that we're related to you, where you can set up inside of your system that you are using Realvolve, and therefore anything from Realvolve servers is a good email. Is one thing that we may need to do, and you can go through our support team and they can help you with that. The other one is they'll set up an inbox for you where you put in some information. It'll give you an email address and it'll have you email one of your emails to it, and then it'll evaluate how spammy it is. You know, is there something in there that is making it stand out as being spam? And then it'll tell you how to fix it. Hope that was useful to you guys. Have a great
Likewise, thank you.
2024.